hear a little bit more about the regulatory process and what's being done on a day-to-day to ensure that we don't have misinformation widespread leading up to the elections. When it comes to the prosecution, the prosecution office, how have you managed to navigate with other agencies? Because as Joseph mentioned, it's kind of like a multi-agency and stakeholder approach. How have you managed to use what has come to your attention to prosecute effectively? Because I think once the public sees prosecutions happening real time and regularly, it gives the impetus that something is being done to address it. How can you speak to the prosecution process and the success of it as well? Yeah, try this.
Thank you so much, Janet, and thank you, Kofi Annan Foundation, for inviting the Office of the DPP to be here. The DPP would have loved to be here, but due to some emergency, he was not able to. So I'll try as much as I can to be able to represent what was intended to present here. So thank you again for putting us in a panel of different agencies, and this is really important. And so I'll start with the importance of interagency cooperation, which I'm already seeing here. For us to be able to tackle the issues of elections, we must, and I'm using the word must, I hope it's in capital, we must cooperate, collaborate, and coordinate with each other, not only as government agencies, but also with non-state actors, because elections affects everybody, and it basically determines what the sort of life that we can live as Kenyans, and what our constitutions makes us to aspire for. So thank you so much for this initiative, and we are very glad to be part of it, and we are hoping to be part of many others. So what are we doing as an office of the DPP? Or rather, should I ask, what are we doing as a government to ensure that we are having a safe and fair elections, especially with regards to the digital space? So the first thing I want to emphasize is on that, as we're speaking now, we have various laws in place. We have the old one, the penal code, that speaks to elections in terms of incitement. We have the NCAC Act. We have the Cybercrime Act, the one that you just alluded to, Computer and Cybercrime Act. We have the act that regulates him, and of course, we also have the Data Protection Act. So speaking from where I sit, we already have, if I may say, more than sufficient legislation in place to be able to properly regulate what you're supposed to be doing. And in addition to that, I think various agencies also have various policies in place. And for instance, like us in the ODPP, we have what you're calling decision to charge. And this is what we'll look at when a file is presented to us, to make sure that the evidence in that particular file is sufficient to be able to sustain a conviction, whereby we hope that if we are able to sustain convictions in 1 or 2 cases, then we can build confidence in the Kenyans and ensure that others are not able to commit the similar offenses. So as I've said earlier on, there are various offenses, and the one I'd like to emphasize on is the one of publication of false information. And as earlier on discussed, we know that information is flying very fast. So we are ensuring that we must, as much as the Constitution recognizes the right to speak and right of freedom or whatever you want to say, but that must be spoken within the context of the Constitution, such that if you're going to be speaking about hate speech, then that one is a crime. And if such a file is presented to us by the NCSC, then we'll be able to prosecute the same. So I just carried a list of some selected cases that we've already started prosecutions, and we are hoping that with, by the time the elections will be happening next year, we'll have already gotten convictions, just to show that we are very serious about hate speech and related cases. We are also very serious about incitement, because we know that sometimes incitement can really cause damage. But one of the challenges, if I may go ahead, is that sometimes as a prosecution authority or even the investigators, the witnesses are not able to come forward and give evidence. So if you allow me, I'll just give you an example of sometimes back. There was a very senior Mheshimiwa who went publicly and said that certain people from a certain clan should not be able to stay in a particular region. And that person was charged, and we proceeded on well, but towards the end, I don't know whether some of you remembers when somebody say, Wamasai wote watoke Kayole, and that was captured, I think NTV captured it, and it was all over. But can you imagine, to our disappointment, the person who was able to record that information, the original information, was not able to come forth and give evidence. So we are saying that as much as the prosecution authority is able and willing to prosecute, then we must also have the witnesses who are able to come forward and give evidence, such that if somebody threatens anyone, then that person is able to be prosecuted to logical conclusion. Thank you.
We've heard what Wycliffe and Joseph have had to say, Lilian. And this conversation, I guess, could be looked at as two-pronged, because we're looking at the digital space where the members of the public, but we're also looking at the political players and how they many times manipulate that, collect personal data that is then used to coerce an election, if you will. How challenging is it to prosecute, especially when it comes to political players? You were starting to allude to something that showed on the media, and then we went into witness protection, but a lot of the times, people also get the sense that these laws can protect the political class because they are put in place to, protect them for their own interest. So how do you then prosecute in that regard?
Thank you so much, Janet. And I was smiling when you mentioned political, because every time we take a case to court, there's always mutu wetu amepelekwa kotini. So there's always that political aspect of it coming up every now and then. But for us, it does not matter who you are. It doesn't matter whether you're a politician. It does not matter what position you are holding in Kenya. If you've committed an offense, we treat everybody equally across board. So, of course, the political card will always be played. We've charged somebody, then they'll go like you've been charged because you belong to a particular party. But to us, as prosecutors, that does not matter. But allow me to jump into the issue of coordination and cooperation, and to just emphasize that we are coming in at the point when now we are more reactive as in prosecutions. So it is very important that we do more preventive mechanisms, as what my colleagues are already alluding to. And for us as ODPP, although we are supposed to be prosecuting, what we have tried to do is to again try and speak to various people through either our ODPP cafe. We are able to reach out and just discuss and also sensitize the members of public on various offenses and what is expected and how you can be able to even bring up an issue. But more importantly, before COVID set in, we had started going out to the regions and discussing with the communities to just hear what are the challenges and how can we make policies that are responsive. And this included issues on, and if I may say, most of the areas we went to, we recognized that women and children were really at the lower end, as in that the ones who are really suffering. And based on that, we've been able to develop responsive policies from our office on how to deal with women and gender issues. And we already have one of the divisions that specifically addresses SGBV and related issues, such that even when the elections are going to be coming in, then we'll be giving a keen eye on issues to do with women and related in terms of elections. And again, just to add that as an office, again, we have a specific division to deal with hate speech and election justice. And the officers already sensitized, and I know you've been working close with NCIC. They've gone to regions and also sensitized them. So it may seem like nothing is happening. I think we're just not shouting enough, but I know behind the scenes a number of things are happening. I know last week there was a launch of a committee under the Computer and Misuse Act. Again, that committee is just going to feed on to what is already ongoing. I also am aware that there is already a work plan on how to manage most of these things. So I'm saying that although we are coming in as prosecutors, there's also the preventive mechanism that must work alongside the prosecutions as we are ensuring that those who then violate the laws are properly prosecuted without fear or favor.
When will we stop politicizing cases? Because I remember we've taken politicians to court on matters of hate speech, but those cases have either collapsed or they have not gone anywhere. So going for elections next year, do we see the trend doing the same, or are we going to see something different?
Okay, thank you. Those are the questions we can take for now. I think we can start with the last one where she talked about politicizing the cases and whether we'll see anything going forward, and then we'll try and address some of the other questions.
Thank you so much for your question. And let me say that as ODPP, we do not politicize cases. We prosecute, as I had said earlier on, it does not matter who you are. If an offense has been committed, it has reached the threshold, we will proceed and prosecute you without, for a lack of a better word, caring on who you are in the society. So we do not politicize, but we go according to the evidence, facts, and the law. So with regards to the cases that have been taken to court with regards to hate speech, most of them are pending. I have a list of here I could share with you on the status. Most of them are ongoing, but we are praying and hoping that we'll be able to finalize them before the election period. And let me just also mention something on witness protection. As you're aware, this is a totally independent agency that is run by a totally a different director from the DPP. But what we've done is that we have signed an MOU with them, and we are able to fast track their cases, and that is in conjunction with the judiciary. So what usually happens is that if there's a case that a witness is protected, we reach out, and between the Witness Protection Agency, the judiciary, and ourselves, and we're able to fast track. But remember, a case does not only have the DPP or the Republic. There's the defense. Are they ready to, with the case to go for hearing? There's other challenges. I mean, are we as prosecution ready for hearing? Is the defense ready for hearing? Is the court ready for hearing? Is the accused person ready for hearing? Is the witness available? So there are other circumstances that might come to play, and as a result, the case may delay. But I can stay here without fear of contradiction. In cases where we're having the witnesses, and the witness is willing and to come and testify, we usually try and escalate those cases so that they're had on a priority basis. But remember also, witness protection is a voluntary. You may have a very key witness, but if the witness chooses not to get into the program, there's nothing you can do about it. So as you're saying, it is a matter of, again, going out and sensitizing the witnesses. And at the end of the day, I always say we are Kenyans. And as we are Kenyans, there are certain values that we must espouse. We must, as a Kenyan, not depending on the government, but just looking at it like in your house, you have some values. And these values are then slowly escalated to government and everyone. So as a Kenyan, I just urge all of us to be patriotic, because if you're patriotic, then even the issues we are discussing of misinformation, giving false information, escalating them, then if you have those values, then we may not be able to escalate those. You may not be able to retweet information that you know is wrong. You may not be able to share information that you know is wrong. So at the end of the day, I always say, as a Kenyan, it starts with me, it stops with me. It's not the government, it is you as a person. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that.